Welcome to Getting It On with James and Heather. I'm Heather Dawn.
And I'm James Guay. And like you know, we're dishing out sex, love, relationship advice
Without
the sexual snobbery.
And especially in this episode, because we're talking about mindfulness in relationships is sexy.
Very sexy.
Yeah. So there will be no judgment, especially this. I won't say anything about you not being sexy.
All right, thank you. You can be mindful about that. Mindfulness isn't always associated with sexiness, but it really can be if you apply it to relationships. So let's just talk about the benefits.
Of being sexy?
Of being sexy and mindful.
Let me flick my hair for this one.
One of the benefits is decreased anxiety and depression. If you use mindfulness in a particular way to look at what's going on internally, it can quiet the noise and help relieve some of that tension, internalized conflict and stress. Right?
Yes, mindfulness is a proven stress reducer. And it's really just about getting us into the moment. So as James was saying, depression, anxiety, managing stress, other physical ailments like blood pressure and blood sugar, response to pain, you know. So this is where mindfulness and mindfulness techniques start to come into our life. And of course in our relationships where maybe things aren't going so great, mindfulness can be applied to bring some of the sexiness back into them.
All right. Well, it also helps us to sort of look at repeating patterns, repeating arguments, conflict in the relationship, and enter into it in a different way. That's a little bit more aware of what's going on. Are they like patterns that are repeating based on your first primary relationships in life that are playing out in your adult relationship?
Most probably.
Right? Happens to most of us.
That's why the psychology field came into existence.
Hello.
But no, in seriousness to what he was saying, you know, I always like to tell my students that when you start to look at the mind is like this amazing time traveler. And, you know, you should be kind of proud that it has this capacity, like an Orson Welles movie, to travel into different times and places. Yeah. The problem is it comes at a cost, right? And the cost usually is our health and well-being. So if we travel oftentimes too much into the future, it's because we're worried about something that may or may not ever arrive. And when we allow the mind to travel too much into the past, it's usually because we're ruminating or, you know, longing for something that we miss or that we should have done differently. There's a lot of regret back there.
Right.
And so it's one thing to visit these places on occasion, but if we get stuck too much in that worrisome future and we get stuck too much in that, you know, dreadful past of tyranny, you know, you wind up sacrificing the one thing that's in the here and now, which is this body. The body cannot travel into the future, and it cannot travel into the past.
Right? Yes. Here and now.
Which is why if you're looking to start a mindful practice, most mindful practitioners will teach you to start with your breathing, because you have to take a breath in every moment. If you don't, you've got serious problems, and you know, we wouldn't even be doing this show without breathing.
Exactly.
We'd be looking something like this.
Keep breathing, Heather.
Oh, okay. All right. So,
it's our anchor. It's in the here and now. Focusing on the breath is oftentimes a mindfulness meditation exercise. So there's also, this doesn't mean that we ignore the past or ignore the future, but we frame it in terms of how does it affect us in the present moment, right? So it's, as a therapist, you know, I talk to clients about how past relationships or family relationships have affected how they are in the present moment. Right?
Yeah.
It's for figuring out how to do things different, having greater insight, and figuring out how to break those patterns.
Right.
And of course, we need to have, it's important, useful to have goals for the future, right? But if we're so attached to that outcome of the future, it can take us away from being in the present. So this is about moderation and...
Well, it's good that you said moderation, because if you've read, and I know you have, and both James and I have, Mating in Captivity, you know, Esther Perel talks a lot about you know, eros and passion and spontaneity. Mindfulness is sort of consciousness. It can, you know, cramp some of that sometimes, and it can also enhance it, right? Because mindfulness could be a sort of spontaneous bust of excitement, but it could also be used to overthink and overanalyze, right? And so again, what you were just saying, sort of finding that balance, you know, like mindfulness wants us to be conscious, but not in a self-conscious kind of way. You know, you're looking to pay attention rather than to be self-obsessing.
Right. It's not overanalyzing yourself or the situation. That is not mindfulness. So let's define what mindfulness is. I really love Jon Kabat-Zinn.
Big fan.
Yeah, a medical doctor in the US who brought over this concept from, the Eastern sort of Buddhist philosophies and created a program called the Mindfulness Stress Reduction Program at the University of Massachusetts. And his definition, I think, is just great. It's easy to sort of sink your teeth into. Thanks, Heather. Is paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally, as if your life depended on it. And we're going to break that out for you. But
as if your life depended on it is a little severe for me, I have to admit.
I prefer saying something like, as if it's really important.
Yeah. As if my life depended on it, immediately my sympathetic arousal was just like, I'm dying?
Right.
So I just want to say.
Whatever works for you. Yeah, that last one. Again, this is about carpe diem. This is about there's something valuable and important about being mindful in the present moment. That was the basic gist.
So now we start looking at things like paying attention and what that means. We have, you can pick up any article on most days and be like, we have an ADD society or an ADHD society. Everyone's having problems paying attention. Okay, but it's because I also don't think a lot of people have taught us how to focus. We're taught how to go to school. We're taught how to wash ourselves and to study. We're not really taught very often how to communicate. And we're not really taught how to focus, right? Sometimes it comes naturally to people and other times it doesn't. It definitely did not come naturally to me, I'll tell you that much.
I hear you. This is about paying attention differently. So it's about noticing things that we might not otherwise notice, like what are our thoughts, our feelings, our body sensations, our memories, all of that material that we oftentimes ignore, repress, deny, don't want to look at because sometimes it feels uncomfortable to do so.
If you're looking for something to get you into the moment, tap in first to the breath, then to the body. The body has to stay in the moment. It does not have the capacity to travel forward or backward. Now, sometimes it can hold on to traumatic patterning from the past. But for the most part, it's pretty dense. It's not going anywhere unless somebody creates a really good device to make it go somewhere.
Right.
So use the body. Check in with the breathing. Check in with the heart rate. Notice the various feelings that are going on, the thoughts.
Is there any tension? Is there any relaxation in certain body parts and temperatures? Yeah.
Textures, smells, tastes on the mouth. Use the five senses to start to bring you into the moment. Where are your feet or buttocks rooted, right? Those kind of things will start to bring you into the moment. And paying attention, as you were saying, also is about learning how to play with perception.
Right. Exactly. Right. So the second piece of mindfulness, according to Jon Kabat-Zinn's definition, is doing this on purpose. It's about, like we're saying, getting off autopilot and having intentionality, that there's value in doing this, like really having that sort of focus that you're talking about.
Well, I think when you think about purpose, I think of my Buddhist teacher from many years back saying about having a desire. We often think of desires as like, I desire you, or I desire that chocolate, as being some kind of a chemical desire, right? Yeah. But desire is a lot about intention or purpose, which is, am I looking for, a more functional relationship or a sexier relationship? And to do so, you can't place it on the partner. You have to look towards yourself, and you have to have that desire, that purpose, that need to want to make the change. If it's kind of half there, it's kind of half going to happen, right? So you first and foremost have to have that desire, that purpose, to actually want to commit to a change. And you can't look to your partner to do it. You have to look to you.
Right.
Your partner's in charge of them.
Hello. Let's take personal responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah.
We can help each other out and assist and remind people, but ultimately we have to take responsibility.
And then in being in the present moment, okay?
The third piece of mindfulness here.
Focusing on the here and now requires us to take a look at sort of what we were just saying, tap into the five senses plus thought and sound. And it's really important because when you're looking into the five senses, you're developing a skill called listening. You're listening to the sounds of the body, you're listening to things. We have a habit, and I do this all the time because I unfortunately think way too quickly, and I'm, as a therapist once said to me, I'm a little too clever because because my brain is just ahead of the game a lot. And that's not a bragging point for me. That was something I needed to work on.
There's strengths and challenges about that, just like all of our strengths and challenges. Right?
So you have to get into the present moment. It's not just about seeing; it's about listening. And the difference between that and hearing is I can hear how they're snapping. Right. Listening is absorption. Right. What is that snapping doing to me? What responses am I having physically? Where did my mind go when I heard the snapping? It's an absorption of a sound, right? Rather than just hearing and nodding and
I'm listening, I swear.
No, you're not.
I am.
I'm not listening to you.
I can tell you everything you just said.
I'm not listening.
And I care.
What?
That. So it's about being really focused on the here and now in the present moment, because again, that's all we really have, right? We can't change the past. We can't predict the future, although maybe you can a little bit.
I can a little. That's a whole nother episode.
We've done that one before too.
And the other thing you should say with being in the here and now, which is we often get attached, right? When you're looking at being in the present moment, you have to look at the attachments that keep you from being in the present moment. And the attachments are usually to a way of doing things that you may or may not be conscious of, or care not enough to change. Right? But we tend to have an attachment to a way of thinking or feeling, or as James has said multiple times, a patterning. In order to get into the here and now, you have to be willing to see the attachment you have, and then be willing to let it go once you've recognized the holding pattern, because it's not holding you, you're holding on to it, either consciously or unconsciously.
Which I think naturally brings us into the fourth point, which is to do all this non-judgmentally. This is about approaching our present moment experience with curiosity, with some level of objectivity, right? Where it's sort of like you're maybe looking at a computer screen and seeing what's happening, versus like, feeling like you are in it and a part of it. It's like it allows us to step back and look at what's going on. So, a part of that is, if we're judging what we're observing, it's less likely that unconscious material will come into our present moment awareness, right? So being non-judgmental, giving ourselves some space to be human, to, make mistakes, to
what?
Discover...
You make mistakes?
I know, right?
You? I'm not doing this show with you anymore. I thought you were perfect. This relationship, over.
So not that. It's about really allowing ourselves to have a sense of curiosity, like I said, objectivity.
The other thing too that's interesting about non-judgment, non-judgment doesn't mean making a judgment for yourself, right? Oftentimes people go, well, I don't want to judge, and they use that as an excuse also not to take an action. Sometimes a judgment needs to be made, but it doesn't have to be in a way that shames somebody else or shames yourself. Right? Judgments can be made from a place of observation, going, wow, every time I eat that pizza box, I feel like crap. And so that's a judgment, but it's a judgment that's trying to initiate a different behavior for your health. You don't have to be like, you stupid idiot, why did you eat the pizza box? I can't believe you. Now I feel hate. I'm going to go make myself throw up. That's like judgment used in a really harsh and bad way. Judgment used in a way of observation to initiate a positive change or a healthy boundary without shaming yourself or another, that type of judgment is actually okay.
Absolutely. It's important that we notice what the facts are without the, shaming, moralistic judgments and criticism, but it's also important that we discern, right? We discern our environment, our safety, if we're in a toxic relationship, the qualities that exist there, so that we can better take care of ourselves and protect ourselves. So let's talk about how to use mindfulness in relationships.
Well, right now I'm feeling like I want to love strangle your neck. Was that mindful?
No, not so much.
It's okay, he likes that. He gave me permission.
You can be mindful with BDSM.
You can be mindful. You can be mindful in anything. Mindfulness is used, it could be done to drive the car, to be on your phone.
To walk, to wash dishes, to have sex, right?
What?
Yep. you can notice what's going on in your body. Are certain elements getting goosebumps or heat or excitement, heartbeat? What feels pleasure? Does your big toe feel pleasure for that sort of sexual act you're doing?
And
those kinds of things.
And in terms of, I think, when you're dealing with repetitive arguments or, discourteous behavior in relationships, mindfulness can be that thing that goes, hang out a second. I can feel my heart rate getting elevated. I can see the adrenaline coming through. I can see what's happening here with you, with me, myself. Why don't we just take a break here for a second? Mindfulness will assess the physiology, will assess the thoughts and the feelings that are going on. Mindfulness sits there in observation and says, okay, let's stop for a second. Let's go to our respective corners, whatever that means, and then revisit mindfully without getting into as someone once said to me, a circular gunfight.
Absolutely. It can be a moment where you notice how activated and triggered you're getting in a particular argument with someone, like an intimate partner, where if you allow yourself to be mindful, you can notice, are there recurring themes in your life? Is there a core belief that you have that's really important to you? And so this really brings up a lot of intensity for you, and you can even use mindfulness with safe, trusted individuals where you make process comments like, I'm noticing I'm getting really upset and I'm not able to think or articulate in the kind of way that I'd like to. I need a little break. Let's take a little 20-minute break and come back at it from a different place.
And I want to point out what he just said. He didn't say, you made me, you. If you're going to use mindfulness, step away from the you and the finger pointing.
That's the judgment part.
And put it this way. And say, I. Make personal statements.
Right.
Not accusatory. Wow. Thank God I got that word out. But yes, make personal statements. Mindfulness is the observation of you and the environment around you. Whether it feels good or not is irrelevant. You want to be able to see all. Think of yourself as a camera lens, not a lens that's been filtered and edited.
Right. Well, and it can also be like noticing, oh, wow, we really escalated this conversation at a moment. Let's take a pause. Let's take a moment. Let's start this all over again from a different place, right? So you can do a do-over. You can do, okay, take two, let's try this differently, where you really are present with the person you're with and you acknowledge, understand, empathize, summarize what they're saying. You don't have to agree with everything, but you can articulate that what they're saying and who they are is important. And you can do this better from a mindful sort of position, right?
Great.
Yeah.
So give it a try. There's lots of ways to get into mindfulness. One of my favorite books is Mindfulness for Life, and you really, John Kabat-Zinn is all over YouTube. You can see any of his videos.
Thich Nhat Hanh is another Buddhist monk who's brilliant. He wrote Peace is Every Step.
He's written a lot of books.
Now, I read this like 20 years ago on the Muni in San Francisco, and it was just like, it was so therapeutic for me.
I have a question because I'm constantly mispronouncing his name. Did you say
I don't know if I said it correctly.
I think it's Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I know.
I'm
just asking because I'm like the butcher of names and spelling, and so I just wanted to.
We're in the same crew together.
And it's never on purpose. But I just was wondering. I was like, is it Thich Nhat Hanh? I was like,
Thich Nhat Hanh,
anyway,
Thich Nhat Hanh,
yes.
Thich Nhat Hanh. Yeah.
Please feel free to correct.
Exactly.
Anyway, thank you.
Yes, and we would love to hear from you, so call us at the number below and send us a voicemail message asking your questions that we can address on our show. Yeah, or Facebook. You can find us at the James and Heather Show, or Twitter, James Heather SHO. We'd love to hear from you. Bye.